he knew that people like us and in independent media and all of y'all out there, he didn't know that we know about him and his evils, and it's caught up with him. And you begin to see all these different plays that are happening with him. And Mark Zuckerberg coming out and said, oh, he likes George Soros. And then George is dumping Facebook stock. And now he's saying that Facebook needs to be investigated. And I mean, it's just like crazy stuff. And then Thomas started talking about Soros, and I went, oh my gosh, we need to put a microphone on you. So that's what we're doing, and I'm going to be quiet.
You shouldn't be quiet. You should scream and yell, just like all of us should, that a purple revolution is going on, another George Soros color revolution, a regime overthrow. It was a revolution before the election. It's now a coup d'etat. It is a regime change, always based around elections and saying that the elections are incorrect. Well, 2 years later, they're still saying the elections are incorrect. But here's what has been happening, and it's very hard to understand. So when we were asked to please explain this, there were even members of the conclave that didn't quite understand the full ramifications of what's going on here. George Soros, okay, he's been used since the time of the fall of the USSR as a rogue CIA economic vulture. He's a predator economic warrior, basically, and he goes into countries that we know that we are destabilizing with the CIA and the rogue CIA. When I say rogue CIA, I mean as soon as George Bush Sr. got out of the White House, that was really the very strengthening of the rogue CIA. He had 4 separate intelligence agencies working for him at that time, and they were working out of the Azerbaijan Chamber of Commerce. But anyway, they were attacking these countries. And as George Soros was there, he was this person sent in, along with Leo Wanta originally, to sweep up after the chaos had been created. And in some cases, literally the gold of certain countries would be stolen, or there would be economic attacks, there would be currency manipulation. Soros did it to 14 different countries. He shouldn't be allowed in any of them. And still people fall down at his feet and just listen to anything he has to say. That's because recently he gave $18 billion in America to non-governmental organizations, which are all left-leaning, progressive, very democratic organizations that do not declare themselves to be democratic, and therefore as 501c3s, they should be closed down because they have a political agenda which they have not stated in their charter. And this is standard operating procedure. When Obama was gathering money from all of his different scams and putting it into his slush funds, same thing. They would go to the same NGOs. Literally, Antifa was created by George Soros and donations stolen by Obama and shuffled to them. Antifa, I mean, these are domestic terrorist organizations, all funded by George Soros. And anytime you hear the word America, democracy, freedom of press, in any country, stop and just look. If right next to it there is a United Nations organization with the same type of title, then that is a George Soros operation. Then generally you'll find either the rogue CIA there, depend if it's based upon corporate intelligence, or you'll find our CIA there if it's based upon just basically tending corporate interests in foreign countries, including George Soros's corporate interests. But remember, he's moving through currency and he's moving through investments, and he created in Venezuela, he keeps, in Caracas is where the quantum hedge fund that he basically showed everybody else how to cheat, steal, lie, take money out of this country and put it in offshore accounts and not pay any taxes on it, then turn around and bring that money back into the country and manipulate it. This is a national security issue. He is threatening our currency. He's threatening our stock market. He is threatening now freedom of speech through Facebook, and that's what I'll get to in a minute. But we forget, and in the comments below, how would you say?
Well, in the description box, everybody, I've got that one link, and if you go into it, all of our citizen intelligence reports are the big ones that we did on George Soros are there, plus a few of the recent articles that we're going to be talking about.
George Soros is not a conspiracy theory. George Soros, in 14 different countries, has carried out color revolutions that they literally name the Purple Revolution, the Rose Revolution, the Maidan Revolution, the Orange Revolution. In America, it's been called by State of the Nation and others the Purple Revolution. We call it, Trump's response to it is the Second American Revolution. And we are in a pitched battle at this point. And in a minute, we're going to describe again how Soros has infiltrated America to take away free speech, and how he's doing it through FANG, through Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. Why? Because they drive the stock market. And George Soros just sold his majority stock, the majority of his stock in Google and also Facebook recently, as all the big people who made money off of those fake tech companies, they all are getting out in a big way because they know what's about to happen. We've been telling you what's about to happen, and we've been telling you why it's happening. But then you ask the question, then why is George Soros now connected to Facebook through the digital forensic research laboratory?
And make sure to talk about
donation.
Nick Clegg here, too.
And why is Nick Clegg coming over to take over Facebook, and why is dude Zuckerberg being pushed out? Well, we know why that, because he's an idiot, doesn't know what he's talking about, never did, doesn't know a thing about writing code, actually knows nothing about his own company. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We'll get to that in a minute. George Soros is the number one enemy on the face of the earth to every country on this globe. He took over the European Union and created a central bank so that he can then manipulate currency, manipulate that central bank, and manipulate the European Union. He brought the invasion into Europe with the help of Angela Merkel. Why? To destabilize Europe. But before he did, what did he do? Look at George Soros and his criminal activity. He tried to get the remaining countries that aren't part of the European Union all connected so that they would all make these agreements about migrants coming across their borders, about their central bank that rules them, through a European Union Congress that has unelected representatives sent to it. So George Soros controls the European Union, and has, and we'll go further into that in just a minute. 14 different countries that we have pointed out in our intelligence reports where he has committed crimes against humanity, where literally hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people died because of his manipulation of stock markets, of currencies, of basically the economics of entire countries. And yet they still listen to this man. We still fall down at the feet of this Nazi from Romania who's not even an American. He's a dual citizen. He is not even accepted in his own country. He's been kicked out.
Well, somebody's protecting him. I mean, is it the Queen or the Pope? Who protects this thug?
George Soros is deeply involved in the Privy Council of the Queen through Jeffrey Patty, through Lord Malloch Brown, through Strategic Communications Laboratories, even though it is now faltered and turning into another company, at least a name, but the same company is going on, which is election manipulation. And then the same people who own the election machines worldwide. He also is behind what is, we just mentioned, that became the very tool through Article 13 for free speech to be taken out of Europe. And that was a group called Digital Forensic Research Laboratories, which basically came up with algorithms, and basically they call it artificial intelligence bots, which are also linked to 10 other groups that are doing basically what I would call what the Truth Ministry does in these dystopias, where the Truth Ministry decides what's true and what isn't. But also remember, Article 13 basically took the ability for the internet to properly function in Europe. In other words, he dismantled the very vehicle that is used, that the only thing that could have been used to fight against George Soros in Europe. And now you cannot fight against George Soros in Europe. In countries like Romania, where he has been kicked out, his university has been kicked out. He's been kicked out of many countries in the East, with Russia, with Turkmenistan, with Azerbaijan, with Kazakhstan, with many countries. Literally would arrest George Soros if he stepped on their grounds, their country, in their country. So George Soros is a criminal, and yet he's listened to for economic advice. And here in America, he's allowed to give $2 billion illegally through election fraud, campaign donations, and also manipulation of super PACs illegally for Barack Obama, 2 elections in a row, and for Hillary Clinton.
Not to mention his ownership, along with Mitt Romney, with Optech Software.
He is up to his eyebrows in the manipulation of elections. And the Brexit call for a second Brexit election, that's him. But what did he have to do first? He had to dismantle free speech through social media, which he has used in his color revolutions again and again. Let's just give you an example so that you realize this is not a conspiracy theory. Read the intelligence reports. But let's just go to Ukraine, where Paul Manafort helped Viktor Yanukovych get into office twice in a row, while Victoria Nuland and others in the State Department under Hillary Clinton and John Kerry spent $4.7 billion in 2 color revolutions, the Orange Revolution and later the Maidan Revolution, both in Ukraine, both against Viktor Yanukovych, who was being represented by Paul Manafort and Rick Gates. But remember, and that's why they're going to jail, because they were paid money in an offshore account. Oh, but don't forget that both Podesta brothers were also paid, and they did not register as foreign agents either, by the same 3 Ukrainian oligarchs who are basically the same party, the Party of Regions, which is the Nazi party in Ukraine, same Nazi party that supported Hitler. And Joe Biden and John Kerry go there and sweep up all the money for their sons. But anyway, complete corruption going on there. $4.7 billion Victoria Nuland was yelling about in the press, that she wasn't going to spend that much money and have Paul Manafort then steal $27 million from the World Bank. Completely a lie. Same people who came up with the Russian dossier came up with that lie, Alexander Chalupa and others in Ukraine. But what we're talking about is George Soros' color revolutions are supported by the State Department, Hillary Clinton, Victoria Nuland, John Kerry, hand in glove. The very groups, Democracy Now!, all these different groups that...
The other countries were practiced for the big takedown, which was America.
This is exactly where I was going.
Well, I just get there sometimes really...
I know, because you're quicker than I am, because
that's
I'm from the Ozarks and you're from Florida,
you know? Good.
You go a lot faster.
It's all good. Keep going. It's fascinating.
So anyway, George Soros, with the color revolution in Ukraine. Hello? That wasn't a revolution. That was a CIA operation with George Soros as their normal puppet, and with the State Department and Hillary Clinton, backed by Joe Biden, and then later by John Kerry, whose son, Christopher Hines, went in and got a huge billion-dollar contracts. And Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, went in and got huge billion-dollar contracts, got put on one of the largest liquid gas boards, pay position, though he knows nothing about liquid gas. This is the kind of corruption that is standard. And so then they want to say that they should put Paul Manafort in jail and that John and his brother Tony Podesta should go free, but Rick Gates should turn on Paul Manafort, and Paul Manafort should go to jail for the rest of his life. That's basically the way that it goes. Why? Because either you're with George Soros or you're not. And if you're with George Soros, you have the in all the way into the senior executive service members who are the lead members in the federal agencies, even the federal military. And these people are globalists, and they have been supporting and allowing George Soros to do this forever. Now, we are finding out that George Soros gave out credit cards to the people in the caravan, starting all the way when they were in Honduras. Well, let's remember, George Soros started in Venezuela. Michael Pence went and said, oh no, it's really China and Russia working through Venezuela, getting literally now as many as 5 million people in Central America all worked up that they can invade America, just as the immigrants, well, they're not immigrants, or migrants, oh, they're not migrants, the invaders of Europe invaded Europe, 22 million of them, and they're basically now have 5 million ready to go from Central America, fresh out of their prisons, And by the way, they've been paying the gangs in those Central American countries to terrorize everyone so that they could then say that they were fleeing for asylum reasons. And so those countries are being destroyed by money from China, Russia, from George Soros. Soros, Caracas, Venezuela, Optech, Jimmy Carter, the rogue CIA, hello? This is where Hezbollah is coming in. This is where ISIS is coming in. Al-Qaeda is coming.
I tell you, Thomas, you would think that this is a time for martial law in the country to set this right. This is so out of control.
Trump he's already declared martial law, because when he declared that he has 3 national emergencies going on, all 3 of them are for national security purposes, which put us into a condition that is actually beyond martial law, that was set up with 13 executive orders by Obama that was ready to be used by Hillary. Now Trump gets to use it. So Trump is in 3 states of emergency, and now we're in a state of emergency with the southern border, and literally the military has been called out. Why? Because we are under assault by Mexico.
And not to forget what is happening at the Federal Reserve.
That's another war he's in, as well as in a war with the Supreme Court Chief Justice. So if we go back to George Soros, let's remember that George Soros has been basically unchecked by America. Why? Because he was in on the Yamashita gold. He was in on the gold of Germany, the gold that was stolen and put in the bank for international settlements. He has been in on every deal from way back. And he always gets his piece of the pie. So he's not an American. He's not a Romanian. They've kicked him out. He's not a real member of the British Privy Council, because he tried to break the sterling pound in Britain. He tried to destroy the Bank of England. Well, that gets too close, because the Bank of England is the bank for the Queen, and you can't mess with the Queen. You can't ask about the Queen's business. So George Soros is friends of many Privy Council members, and they have to be friends with him because he controls the European Union. Now, as we have said again and again, after Article 13, which basically destroyed the internet, it's very complicated to explain, but the GDPR, or also called Article 13, took away free speech in Europe and Britain, except for those countries that don't go along with the European Union. Now remember, George Soros went after Macedonia, Albania, Montenegro, tried to get Turkey into having full powers with NATO and with the European Union. He's tried to overwhelm those countries and literally put them into economic destabilization, so that then they would have to go to the European Union begging to be members of the European Union Central Bank, which is what his big goal is to completely fleece the European Union Central Bank. Because why? He already has those nations in the palm of his hand. After Article 13 allowed him and the Digital Forensic Research Laboratory and his 10 different groups that are fact checkers to control now the internet in Europe, basically destabilizing the economic income of the internet, many countries have moved out of even working through the internet in Europe. That's going to happen here in America. That's the reason George Soros already spent $1.5 billion through the Atlantic Council, the same group that created for us the Russian dossier, and he donated to Facebook to bring that very system into Facebook as an experiment. But when you say Facebook, you mean all of its other subsidiaries. And he's getting it into other social media organizations, except that it wasn't made public. $1.5 billion. He didn't trust Mark Zuckerberg, so he brought over the ex-assistant prime minister of Britain, Sir Lord Baron whatever, Nicholas Clegg. That's really not his name. Nick Clegg. And Nick Clegg is now basically going to take over because Sheryl Sandberg couldn't rein in dude Zuckerberg because he's a complete idiot, doesn't know what he's talking about. Every time he opens his mouth, he gets the company in huge problems, and the company's going down. As we have told you, the FANG companies are going down. George Soros already took his money out. Why? Why would he be taking over
And that's
Facebook?
just in the last week.
Yes.
Took his money out. And Facebook stock over the year has gone down 25%. What did you say overall? It's like 39, 40%?
Yeah, from its high point, It's gone down 39%. So Facebook is over, folks. It's only propped up by its military contracts. And we've told you this from the beginning. It was fake from the beginning. Facebook doesn't make any money at all with their advertisements. It was a psyops. It was always a psyops. It was a venture capital trick. It was taking a DARPA project that was stolen from Leader Technologies by the IBM Eclipse Foundation and given to 20 different companies, and they did specific applications of those trade secrets and that intellectual property. And dude Zuckerberg was he was a useful idiot, and not a very useful idiot, just mostly an idiot. And so everything he's ever done is revealed that the company is fake. He's lost every lawsuit except the one against the real company that he stole it from, Leader Technologies. But in the end, look, Peter Thiel left his company, PayPal. All the PayPal people are gone. They've all gone over to new companies. Eric Schmidt jumped out of Google so that he could go to Alphabet, which is ridiculous, calling it the mother company of Google when it was created afterwards. We've told you all about that, Boston Dynamics, Dragonfly in China. Well, what Soros is after is now he's insane. He's a megalomaniac. He only wants personal gain. So he took all the money that was going to have sanctions put on him and taken from him by Trump. I guarantee you there have been sanctions put on George Soros already for all the meddling he's done in the election, which is transparent, and through all of the tax manipulation and the tax avoidance and the tax, basically, fraud that he's been doing all this time. I'm certain that there are sanctions upon him. That is the reason not long ago he gave away all the money he had for giving to NGOs, $18 billion. That was, 5 times more than he usually gives in 1 year, so that he could get rid of all of it so it couldn't be taken from him from his offshore accounts. And it doesn't matter, because George Soros has been propped up by many groups, not just the rogue CIA. So his color revolutions have been very successful in 14 nations, all of which should be considering him the largest criminal on the globe and not allowing him into any of their stock markets or to do any business with them, because why? He doesn't pay taxes. Not only that, he's as corrupt and as criminal as he could be. Recently, after Article 13 was passed, which ended free speech in Europe, he convinced the European Union overnight, after convincing them for years and years with Angela Merkel, his evil daughter, in one way of looking at it, not literally. But she follows him so closely, she might as well be his evil daughter. And what did they do? They lied. And they provided the ships to bring the migrants into Europe as an invasion. And they lied and they lied and they lied. We told you it was going on for 2 years before anybody else did. And now what do we find out? Well, George Soros did a deal with Angela Merkel and Putin so that he could get the gas flowing into Germany so Germany could screw every other European nation that's part of the European Union. Well, after that was able to be squelched by Soros demonstrating that he could stop free speech and the social media that he uses in most, certainly all of his recent color revolutions in foreign nations besides America, and trying that here in America too. What happened was he then said, I can now control history. And from one day to the next, 27 of the nations in the European Union did a study in a very short period of time, a matter of a few weeks, and they came back with the same results from those 27 nations that voted to get rid of all migrants. They call them migrants, they're invaders. To get rid of all migrants. Why? Because they found out that less than 2% of them ever got a job, and even less than that kept a job. And that within 5 years there would be no more nations, there would be no more other languages besides Arabic, there would be no countries left, and that all their history would be gone, their culture would be gone. It took George Soros telling them that before they would then take a vote and say that they're kicking them out. And George Soros says he will take care of it. For $86 billion a year, he will analyze whether or not the asylum seekers in North Africa and in Turkey are really qualified. And then he himself, through these organizations he's going to set up, which now the European Union has agreed to pay $86 billion a year to him and his new organizations. It's a tax. It's a George Soros tax. He's going to supposedly only allow true, valid asylum seekers into Europe. He, and only he will allow that. This is insanity, folks. No time in history has there ever been a person with more power than George Soros that has not been checked, that has not even been called out clearly for his evil, and that in America, where we're supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave, we are not showing any bravery except for Trump and what Trump is doing against him as a globalist. And we need to stop George Soros, and we need to stop him now, simply for tax evasion, if for nothing else.
Yes, because you see, most of the people that Trump has to deal with all day long, these Democrats and Republicans, they're all globalists. So in the end, they're going to answer to George Soros. But there was a point in our conversation, and I want to just give you a few key words, because we were talking about this collapse of Facebook being planned because it's really a way to move us into this social credit scoring system that they already have planned. And we've already seen that the data from Facebook has been breached. And so that information's already been sucked up into this new program. People, you got to pay attention to this social credit system. We have to avoid and resist.
We've been telling you for a year the following, that Eric Schmidt is right up there with the evil George Soros. And what he did in China with Dragonfly was to create a social credit system where he's already helped the Communist Party, who we should have no business dealings with at all whatsoever because of their civil rights violations. They brought in 1 million Uyghurs in the northwest part of China for vocational training, re-education they call it. Killed 750,000 of them. Now they're bringing in another million. Okay, this is Eric Schmidt and his Dragonfly. This is the social credit system. It's already operative here in America. Now, here's what we've been telling you for some time. Eric Schmidt is the digital evil George Soros. He already has set up through Alphabet what you're going to have is what I call your digital box. You're going to be offered Facebook. You're going to be offered all this stuff for free. Facebook, what you would call Google, a search engine. So you'll have your social networking like Facebook. You'll have your Twitter like Twitter. But it'll be all in one system, and it'll be through Alphabet. And Alphabet's going to offer all of this to you for free. It's going to let you do everything online. Your Internet of Things is going to basically be there for you. All you're going to have to do is just basically join. As a matter of fact, at first it will be free. And all of your Googles, all of your searches are now going to go through a different thing. And Sir Timothy Berners-Lee, has said he's creating a new Internet. That is Eric Schmidt's new Internet, which is Alphabet. And Alphabet is going to offer you all the services, Gmail, everything Google offered, everything Facebook offered, everything Twitter offered, Instagram, everything everybody offered, PayPal. It's all going to be one system, and you get it for free at first. And then later, it's going to cost you everything. But at first, it's going to be free. And at first, it's going to be really very interesting because it's going to offer you all your news. You know why? It's been studying you for years as a psyops. It knows more about you than you know about you by the choices that you have made with your Googles, with your anything you've done online. It now knows everything. It knows where you've been, who you've been with, who you've talked to, your bank account.
If you're on a dating
everything.
website, they know the intimate details that you put on those.
They know everything.
Everything.
And if you're a federal employee through the Office of Business Management, they stole that. How many times does Google have to say, oops, another hack, another 87 million. Oops, Uber, 57 million. Oops, Facebook, another 27 million. Oops, oops.
They're collecting your data.
Folks, what is going on in the rest of the world that they're not telling you here in America? Here's what's going on. George Soros has already taken down Facebook in Europe. Pay attention. $8 billion in lawsuits. Billions of dollars in tax evasion. Billions of dollars now that is going to be put on them because They avoided taxes by going to European nations and just going to Ireland, going to Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, all these quaint little places where they were given tax breaks. Oh, now all the rest of the European Union, because George Soros told them to, is going to charge them the same amount of taxes that they had to pay in Ireland recently. Oh, guess what? That's going to happen here in America too. It's already happened in Australia. It's happened throughout all of Europe. And it's happened anywhere where any sensible government said, wait, you don't pay taxes. Wait, everything you do is illegal. You say that you are a platform for free speech and that you're not responsible for what comes across the Facebook or Instagram or anything. That's a lie. You're responsible for every single radical Islamic fascist terror group that there is, and you can destroy them overnight. You can do a query, as you full well know, because we saw Nellie Orr do that with the Russian dossier. You can do, the CIA teaches people this. This is what Peter Thiel is doing with the whole world, showing everybody how you can go on and on these old systems with a query, you can go into everyone's Gmail account and everything they ever said in every note to everyone and every note that anyone ever sent them. And you can do a query of it. And you can do an analysis of it. And you can do a linguistic analysis of it. And you can do a commercial analysis of it. You can do a background analysis of it. You can do a psychological profile on every single person for free for $3.54 from Facebook, folks.
And like we were saying, you are the wetware already because you carry your device with you everywhere. That cell phone, where's your cell phone right now? Look, where is it? It's within arm's reach. We paid for it.
Yeah, they don't need the inserts.
No.
As you keep pointing out to me, I keep forgetting. Yeah, they don't need the wetworks in us. We choose with our phones. We would put that thing in our brain if it could save us the effort of typing with our fingers. We would take out half our brain and put in that phone. Yes, we would, folks, because why? It makes you seem like you're omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. It's all lies. Those are the lies of the father of lies. And for you to think that you understand your phone, you don't understand your phone or your computer. Nobody does. Not the greatest Mark Zuckerberg fake in the world, not a Peter Thiel, not a Eric Schmidt. No one understands all the programming in your little phone. Why? Because it's beyond the collective consciousness of humanity. It's millions of hours of programming of the smartest people we have, programming permanently, once and for all, the same subroutines until those subroutines literally tell humans what to do instead of humans telling those subroutines what to do. But anyway, we don't want to go there, but that's Eric Schmidt's control. The digital box, your black profile, your dark profile, it first you're going to love it, y'all. It's going to give you your news feeds exactly the way you want them. And then it's when you do a Google, before you finish typing in your question, it's going to finish it, as you see now everywhere in all of your Gmails. You can't type a word that it doesn't finish your sentence for you, and it's pretty darn accurate. Why? It knows you better than you. It knows that when you're typing to that person, that's what you're about to say. Okay? And this isn't artificial intelligence. These are simply subroutines that have been used with algorithms that simply have been analyzing you so that they could manipulate you. This isn't about surveillance. We willingly give up our surveillance because we're idiots, because of our phones, because of our computers. Everybody knows they're surveilled. What do? Oh, we not only do that, we're willing to do anything to make it go faster. We're willing to give up our health with 5G. We're willing to give up our children, knowing that it causes the lack of empathy in our children and illnesses that are new types of illnesses. There's all types of electromagnetic illnesses. We're willing to give up all of that to have the appearance of knowing everything with our phone, being able to go anywhere and do the Internet of Things so that you can remote control everything.
They've lulled everybody to sleep. They're putting fluoride in the water, and now the blue screen constantly on, the instant information. So everybody is asleep. And what we are saying is to the people that listen to the Betsy and Thomas, Tyler and Douglas programs, you know what we're saying to you? What we're saying is we're at the edge of a cliff here, folks. We need a strong group of you to not put on the visor and watch that alternate reality. not sign up for Alphabet, because we have to maintain some kind of conscious core of humanity to lead us forward. There are too many that are not going to make that choice, Thomas, because they will never know that they had a choice to make.
Yes, and we are so fortunate, Betsy, because all these people on your team and all the people who are trying to get in the conclave and who are in the conclave, we have the great geniuses on the whole globe working with us. And we're fortunate in that way, and so we're kind of spoiled. And so when you're hearing us talk to these people, we only talk with people who are really part of the narrative that Betsy is leading us towards, which is a battle. This is a second American Revolution, and if you don't understand that, and you aren't willing to put something on the line, then listening isn't going to do you a lot of good. It will change your consciousness, and we need that consciousness to change so we can reach the critical mass of consciousness, so that then when someone mentions it out loud or puts their red MAGA hat on, someone doesn't try to kill them, shoot them, set them on fire, or abuse them, you see. Because why? We won the election. We are the majority, but you wouldn't know that by listening to the mainstream media. You wouldn't know that by the fact that a George Soros gets to romp through our political system illegally with his illegal campaign donations, his illegal super PACs, his illegal subliminal control messaging commercials that are the greatest amount of money ever spent on elections is George Soros's last 2 weeks for Obama and Hillary, and for the other ones he wanted elected in this last election, which is, very strangely enough, the Secretary of State's. Why? So they can control the elections. So George Soros is now, he's a rogue CIA. He's doing his own thing. So he's beyond the Privy Council's control. He is beyond anything in America. He is beyond anything at this point. He is the worst psychopathic, I don't even know a name for him. He's the worst psychopath we've ever had,
well, call it
maybe
as
in
it
human
is.
history.
I mean, his energy is that of Sorath.
Yes, it is. And he chose that name himself, which is the name of the sun demon, 666 in some stories, they say. And he chose the name George Soros. That is another version of Sorot or Soroth.
Well,
Soros.
Talk a little bit about that, because we're talking about an energy here.
George Soros believes that he is God. And if you look at our articles and read them, we give you his own quotes where he says that at first he had trouble being God, but now he can handle it. And once he had his, X number of billions and he realized that he could manipulate countries, that really went to his head. And that at first, he can see that nobody else seems to be very good at it, but he seems to be the best of anybody in history at being God. This is what he's telling us, not the exact words, but read it, you'll see the words are actually worse. There's no country that's safe from him. There's no economy that's safe. The world currencies and the manipulation with China and Russia right now, that is him. That's why he's with them in Venezuela. That's why Venezuela is gone into the toilet. That's why the Venezuelans are giving money to Central Americans to attack America. That's the reason that the George Soros NGOs are giving food and water and transportation to the caravan all the way up here. That is the reason why he gave credit cards to the caravan. He wants America to go the way of Europe. And what I just described to you shows you that George Soros has such control over Europe. It is beyond what I can actually even clearly communicate to you without yelling and screaming and pointing and showing you that never in history have we seen 2 million people killed by Obama under Soros's direction, and all you have to do is look at the DC leaks and you'll see his direct instructions to the DCCC as well as to the DNC. He gave direct instructions to Hillary and Podesta. They were nothing more than his puppets, just like Obama, his puppet. So what did he tell them to do? Kill 2 million people and put 58 million people as refugees, so that those refugees he can then manipulate by sending his boats under false flags to take those refugees, which the Pope makes money off of, which Syria makes money off of, which the United Nations makes money off of, which Turkey makes money off of, and send them into Europe to collapse their social service systems and to basically collapse their central bank. And now it's being done against America. Wake up. We are under attack.